Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about how to use Excel to put error bars onto graphs. So we've got some data here from an experiment that was done to simulation to look at the effect of light intensity or relative light intensity on the rate of photosynthesis by counting bubbles per minute. So we had the distance from the lamp here, we've got a little calculation going on to show the relative light intensity using the 1 over the distance squared formula, and then we've got the number of bubbles per minute with 5 repeats. We've got the mean number of bubbles per minute to 1 decimal place, which you're allowed to do because you're allowed to do just 1 more decimal place than the raw data was collected to. Let's just make this all centered so it looks neat. Okay, and then I've got some other information which we're going to need to have for putting in some error bars. So what I've got the Excel to do is plot a graph here of light intensity on the x-axis and rate of photosynthesis, mean number of bubbles per minute on the y. I've also got it to do a little trend line in which I fiddle around to try and make it do a bit of a line of best fit, which is quite difficult for Excel to do, and obviously it doesn't go back to 0 as you would expect, so it's not perfect. Okay, in fact Excel's not great for doing lines of best fit. Now the graph we're using here is an XY scatter. If you do a line graph, it will not give you the right type of graph. So even though what we talk about as what we would talk about as a line graph, if you choose line graph when you insert a graph up here, will not give you an XY scatter. It's a line graph. There is like a bar chart just with points. Okay, so you have to use the XY scatter to do this type of graph. Now, what we want to do is we want to add in some range bars to show us the spread of data around the mean, to look at the precision in the data. So if we click onto the graph that I've already created and do add, okay, add a chart element, we can see we've got error bars. So if I just click on that, you get these standardized error bars with some set values, and I'll show you about those in a minute. Now you can have error bars to show you this precision around the x, so the sort of the uncertainty on the x-axis, but also the y. Now for GCSE we're only really going to worry about the x, so if we sorry, about the y error, so we're going to delete that. So if you click on that error bar and just press delete, they go away. All right, now if we go to error bars and click across and go to I'll add them back on again. If we go to more options, okay, you can see a little window opens at the side here and it gives you error bar options, so it's giving us just the formatting here. But if we go across to this little symbol here, error bar options, you can see it's putting something called standard error, and we're not going to worry about what that is. What we want to do is put in, you can put in a fixed value. So say if you knew an uncertainty value, you could put that in. So let's say on your x-axis you knew the temperature was plus or minus 1 degrees C, you could put in a fixed value of 1 if the scale here was in degrees centigrade instead of light intensity. Okay, now we're going to put in a custom value, okay, and we need to specify what that is, and the custom value is going to be related to the highest and lowest values here. So our highest for each light intensity that or each distance of the lamp. So you can see here we have got all the data here, all the individual data points, and I've got Excel to find the highest and lowest value. So you can get Excel to do that. If you don't know how to use formulas in Excel, really useful skill to do. And in fact, if I just go up to formulas, I can show you the formulas. If we go into formulas and do show formulae, it will actually show you what the syntax is. So you can see E equals average and then open brackets C3 colon G3, you can see, and it shows you that it's doing an average of those 5 bits of data. And you can see that's similar all the way down, just changing the row number. Okay, and then to find the highest value, if I click on this one, you can see it's doing the maximum between C3 and G3, and similarly for minimum. Okay, and then in the next columns I've got some calculations going here to find the difference between the maximum value and the mean and the difference between the lowest value and the mean, and you'll see why we need to do that in a minute. I've also got a column here that's called stdev, which is calculating a statistical value called standard deviation, which you will use if you do A level, but it's interesting to know what it is as well for when we're doing error bars. So that's a useful little thing. If you ever look at a spreadsheet and it's got some formula, if you go into the formulas thing and just do show formula, it will show you the formula and you can learn some skills from that. Okay, so if we go back to this, okay, and go look here, the reason what I've done here is I've calculated the difference between the highest rate and the mean. Now obviously this has only been done to no decimal places, so we've got a subtraction here. It's got 11, difference of 11, and this one's difference of 6. So 213, 219 is difference of 6. Yeah, so we've got the lowest value, and that's how different it is from the mean. Okay, I've done the same for all the other light intensities. So if we go back to our graph here and go back into our error bars, which we need to work on, so go into our more options, and now specify our value. Now you'll see here it's got equals 1, so we need to get rid of that because we don't want that. Okay, and our positive error is basically the difference of the highest value from the mean. If you put in that value, it'll make it 230, it'll add 230 on to 219, which won't be useful. So we need to just add 11 on to 219 basically, and we're going to do that for all the distances. So if I highlight all of these differences from the mean for the highest value and click off, it's put them into the formula there. And similarly here, if I go in, I need to delete that and then add the lowest differences and then click OK, and you can see, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see it's now added in error bars on the y-axis. So it's added on 11 to 219, yeah, and it's taken off 6 from 219. So this is your range bars. It's showing you your maximum and minimum value with the mean somewhere within that bar. You'll notice that the bars are not even, especially on this one, because obviously there was a bigger difference from the highest value to the mean compared to the lowest value in the mean. That makes sense? So range bars can be a little bit skew-if. Now there is the way you can get around that. You could take the actual range, work out the difference between the highest and lowest, divide it by 2 and plot that evenly either side of the mean, and that's also sometimes seen in GCSE books. Okay, so that's how you do it. So if I show you again where we got that, so if we go into our chart elements, go into our error bars, more options again, okay, we're going to specify value down here, and you'll see where we have highlighted that we're selecting the data onto. The positive value is there, the negative value is from those. So just clicking and dragging with the mouse will highlight them. Okay, now another thing you can do is use standard deviation. Now standard deviation is a statistical formula which looks about how evenly spread the data is around the mean, and it calculates a value which is sort of like a range, but it's not the range. It's called the standard deviation. You don't need to worry about it too much for GCSE. Now if you wanted to plot this, again you could put that in here in your specific value. So what you'd have to do is delete those ones and these ones, and then your positive and negative values are both the same because they're the standard deviation. So you highlight them there and there as well, pop them in, and then you'll see the standard deviation 6.6, so it's now 6.6 above and 6.6 below. So standard deviation bars always give you the same spread either side. Okay, so that's how you add error bars and range bars to your graph. So GCSE we just use range bars, so we add the highest and lowest values above and below the mean. Okay, thank you.